30, call to order. Roll call.
John Righeimer.
Here.
Stacy Hessel.
Here.
Mark Helwig.
Here.
Tom Duffy. Jeff Haney.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Certification of compliance with the open meetings law.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Meeting agenda is set. Public comments. I don't see anybody online or. Okay.
Shaking her head no.
No public comments. We'll move on. The approval of minutes. We have approval in a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? Treasurer's report is included in the packet. We'll move on to number 9 and the finance department report.
All right, we'll start with sales tax. It was down quite a bit for June. As you can see, we're still on target for $3 million for the year, which will be over the budget amount of 2.8 if we hit that, but was disappointing to see it drop down a little bit. It's been a little up and down this year. The last few years, every month has been a little bit over the previous years, but this time we've had some months under and some way over. And I think we're going to be surprised in September when we get that settlement, because that'll be on July activity, which has just been crazy if you've been downtown at all. So that'll be fun to see what that comes in at.
Easiest week of the year. Last week was even over Berkey. Most of the retailers are going.
I went for a walk at 2:00 on last Tuesday, which cars were parked every side street everywhere. I thought I was missing something.
Me too. I'm glad. Did I miss a memo?
Yeah. But it's fun to see. All right, any questions on sales tax? Moving on to budget performance, we are now through June, halfway through the year. Everything's looking really good. The revenues, if you look at the general fund, we're at 49%. I'll talk a little bit more later that we're a little better than that actually. On the expense side, we're at about 44%, which is great. All the individual departments are right on or a little under, except for Department 33, which again is the outside organizations that we fund. We always fund them early. That always runs high to begin the year. So then when we get to the general fund net of the fund balance draw, we have budgeted a $750,000 draw, which we're hoping we don't have to do. We haven't had to do that the past 2 years. So we're hoping we don't again. Then we're at 51% net of that. So we're a little bit ahead. And then the expenses net of that transfer to HHS, which again, we're hoping to not have to do, we're at 46%. So still under, still looking good. Health and Human Services looks like we're running at quite a deficit, which we are. It's not atypical for this time of year. I looked at last year, this time, relatively similar. And same with Highway, we're running a little ahead, which is again common for this time of year. Once we start road construction, start paying bills on that, the expenses will catch up there. So we're in great shape all around. Any questions on that? Moving on to CIP, very little activity in June. We had decals on a couple of squads, part of a build out on one, and then a little bit of cost with the fan array for the jail. As far as 2025 budget update, we're right in the middle of putting stuff together. Departments are due back to us at the end of July here, both for the budget and the CIP. Previous to sending stuff out, I entered all the salaries and benefits so they all knew what they were looking at there before they even started their own budget process. Highway, I took the template that we had from Washburn from last year, customized it to Sawyer, and put in formula so everything calculates automatically and pulls over to summary sheets. I entered a preliminary budget for them probably 6 weeks ago, sent that off to John and Teresa to look at. And so I'm just waiting to hear back on that. And same with HHS last week before the 4th, I finished a whole new spreadsheet for them. Patty retired. She had about 30 different spreadsheets. I started a new one with just one with a bunch of different tabs to make it a little easier moving forward. And I got that completed and entered preliminary numbers based on previous years and what I knew for this year, and sent that off to Julia, I think last Tuesday. So waiting to hear back on that again, and we'll go from there. Once we get everything back at the end of the month, we'll put everything together, see where we're at, and meet with departments and make any adjustments we need to either way, and hopefully have some preliminary numbers to you for the finance meeting in August. The August meeting's as early as it can be, so it's going to be tough to turn it around, and it won't be in the packet. I might have it for the meeting. I won't be able to get it done for the packet because I'd have about a day to do that. So any questions on 25 budget? All right, moving on to the investment report. Another good month, $107,000 interest earned. So just, again, another month of unprecedented earnings, which are wonderful. So for the year, we're at $515,000 almost. I budgeted $500,000, not knowing what would happen with the rates.
May or
so we're doing very well. We've already hit that.
Is that through May or through June?
Oh, this is through May. It's always a month behind because we don't get the bank statements till the middle of the month. Any questions on investments? You can see the rates on the right. Last I read, the feds might be looking at reducing rates even up to 3 times this year, was one report I saw. Not until the fall would be anything, so we'll see. It's been talked about before and hasn't happened yet. So
And you can move fastly if you want to lock something in.
Right now, I'd have to bring it to you guys to lock in a CD.
That's the only delay.
Yeah. I have been watching the CD rates. They actually went up a little bit after we purchased that one a month ago, but then
Is
come
it,
down just a little bit.
is there anything we can do to give him more flexibility? I mean, can we make
You could make
like a trigger
parameter.
target?
Yeah, you could make a motion to give him flexibility like over the next month until the next time you meet. That if some, X happens, he can do Y.
Do you think that's necessary now, or?
It wouldn't be a bad idea because this week's rates dropped a little bit from the previous week.
What kind of I don't even know how to form a motion like that. What kind of flexibility would you want?
You could do up to 3 million if the
What, percentage rate or?
yeah, I was trying to think of what a target could be, that if the rate hits this, we should maybe jump on it.
What is it today or yesterday?
When I looked yesterday, the 1-year rates, and I just looked at ampersand, they ranged from 4.9 to 5.35. So it would be somewhere within that range. They give a range because if I did 3 million, I'm going to get quotes from, not quotes, but actually bids from 12 different banks to keep under the insurance amount. So that's why there's a range.
So if you saw there was gonna be like a 1% change in the near future, given that authority, or?
1% would be a lot. Yeah.
That's at first I was gonna say,
Well, but conceptually, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, as far as like, I guess we're catching it on the way down. We want to lock, because we're happy with the float. But when the float starts stalling,
Yeah, and
when do you want to lock in?
the CD rates, I think, are dropping for the longer term because they're assuming there's going to be a rate drop, which will affect the money market rate. That's usually how that works.
Do you have a target in mind? Do you think would be a good
quarter.
Well, I could not get actual quotes, but I could do some rate checking. And I think if the conglomerate rate is under 5 or hits 5, we should probably move.
Okay.
Because if it gets under that, then we're going to be playing the catch-up game.
Make a motion.
Can I ask which, you maybe want to clarify too, ampersand, which money would you move to a CD right now from the local government?
Well, I would, if we wanted to do it, I would get quotes that day to do it. I said ampersand because I get a weekly update from them of where the rates are at.
So you would move money into a CD from?
Oh, from where?
Yeah.
Right now, I probably would move some from the WISC General because we're getting the lowest return on the money market there. So if you wanted to make a motion, I would say, well, up to $3 million if the 12-month CD rate hits 5%.
Can I just ask a question?
Unless you want me to be ahead of that.
Just remind me when we make money off of that, because it's great, but where can that money be used? Just, I want to clarify so that we're not just playing the money market game, but we're actually helping the taxpayer.
It increases our general fund.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. So we budget into the general fund, which, does help in other ways then.
I think it's a good idea. I think we need to be dynamic with the market and not wait on, meetings if things are moving.
The hard part is the money market rates remain strong, but we're starting to see the CD dip because they're anticipating money market to drop. So you're doing something that doesn't always look like it makes sense, but down the road it could look pretty smart. And we could ladder a CD too. It doesn't have to be another 12.
So you're saying if it gets to 5, and right now it's as high as 5.3. So if we did something, let's say today, would we get closer to 5.3?
The range is 4.9 to 5.3. The last time when we did this, the range was very similar, but the whole thing was a little lower, but we got more towards the upper end.
But if we made a motion and said 3 million in 12 months at 5, or if enter once the thing hits 5. So if you left this meeting and went to go do that, where do you think that would be?
If I went and checked today, I would guess we'd be at 5.2 to 5.25.
I hear what you're saying. Should we just do 5.2 or just do it now and make a vote on that? Or do you think it's best waiting, and because it may go a week from now, it may go back to?
You're giving up short-term money for the hope of long-term gain.
Understood.
Which isn't a bad decision, especially if rates do drop.
Yeah, I don't want to get too crafty, but do we have to do 3 million at a time, or could you
We do not.
You could. Does it change the rate range if you do just $1 million, and then another $1 million down in a month from now?
1 to 3 million isn't going to be a big deal. I think they give that range because if you were saying I want 100 million, that's probably going to get you some higher, some lower. I think at 1 to 3 million, we're going to be on that upper range because it's pretty small amount of money for banks. In the scheme of things.
Well, and the 3 million is what percentage of our overall investment?
It's about 12% of our total deposit.
So, bird in hand on 12%.
I wouldn't mind doing a little more because if they drop the rate, it's probably going to be, it could be a quarter. That's really going to affect the CD rates at that time. And that probably won't happen before we meet next. But if there's enough talk about it, that could affect CD rates anyhow.
Well, I'll make a motion, when you say more than 3, 6, 5,
No, I wouldn't do more than that. I don't think at this point.
so 4, 5.
No, I wouldn't do more than 3.
Oh, you wouldn't do more than 3. Okay, so I'll make a motion, 3 million, 12 month. I'm confused in that we want to lock it in now. I mean, to lock in ASAP.
All right.
The 3 million.
percent that he can receive. Right.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Moving on to ambulance billing. So I've got some different data and a different report for this meeting too. I'll start out with some of the stuff you've seen before. First would be the aging schedule. If you want to scroll down just a little bit. So there are 2 different aging reports on here. The first one is solely from the new billing company, EMSMC. And that shows where we're at with them since they took over, what they billed and where it's at. So almost all of it's current. We do have a little bit in the 31 to 60 day window because we are now at 2 months with them. And then the next report, no, you can stay there. Sorry about that. The second aging schedule on this page, what I did is I took that top report and blended it with what we still have showing with LifeQuest. So you can see, and we had talked about this to quite an extent of how the percentage of current was going down, the percent greater than 120 days was really going up. Well, blending the last 2 months in there, we're seeing the trend go back down to what more where we want to be. So I don't know what was going on with LifeQuest, if they were selling off, short-staffed or whatever, but our aging was starting to look bad. So hopefully this turns it around. I'm still able to go and get reports from LifeQuest, I discovered. So that's where I got the stuff to blend them together. But I'm hoping that we're going to get better results now. It's kind of the same story with the place we were with prior to LifeQuest. It went really well. And towards the end, it wasn't going as well. And I think that's what we saw happen. And now we're on our 3rd company since I've been here. And hopefully we're with them a while and they stay strong. So any questions on aging? And this one we did not bid out. They actually acquired LifeQuest along with the previous. 2 years last week. Mm-hmm.
And we got 3 different companies.
Mm-hmm. And actually the switch was just before I started. So it's really 4 companies in about 2.5 years. But this one we didn't try to do. They acquired LifeQuest and acquired the company we were with before them. So
Right, we made 1 switch, they made 2, but like Mike just said, they're acquiring each other, so it's limiting our options if we want to switch in the future.
I will say at least the reporting with this new company is pretty nice, which we'll get to in a little bit. So the next chart then, or graph, is the average calls per month. And, we're still down from where we were, but you can see over the last 3 years, there's quite a leveling out now. And it's kind of, I think, where we are now. We can't create calls, we can only respond to what we get. The next one is the average bill per month per year, which is a 12-month cycle, not a calendar year. And we're down a little from last year, but we're pretty on par with 2 years ago, a little bit ahead even. Next is what we've collected, and we're actually quite a bit ahead of 2 years ago, down from last year. Then next is a percent collected. Again, we're down a little from last year, but we're up from 2 years ago and making a little bit of progress from where we were just a couple months ago. The collections and billed per call, same story, down from last year, up from 2 years ago, and getting close to on par with even 3 years ago, so that's good. Where the calls are going, we've looked at this before. No change at the top. City of Hayward, Town of Hayward, Bass Lake, Winter, always been the top four. The rest in the middle there fluctuate a little bit where they go. Hunter, Round Lake are the next two. Quite a drop off though from the top three, and even Winters, quite a few calls go there. The net income.
Mike, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You have LCO on there. What do you classify as LCO?
I get this from John. I can't, and I don't think he can say that's 100% accurate. We go by with what's reported from dispatch. So I'm not saying there aren't more LCO calls that might be included in one of the townships. Yeah. I would guess the number's higher than that too. The net income is starting to look better. We're catching up on our revenue a little bit, so we're down to a loss of just under 50,000, which is about, I think, half of what it was a month ago. So getting back to this one, which I didn't have new data for last month. Now I did plug in April and May because I went into LifeQuest and got some more data. They did do a big write-off in May, and I think that's probably a catch-up of not doing as many for a couple months there. So, and the other factor in that is the next page. This is charges that went to collections, and there was a big items reverse, which I think is going to be part of that big write-off for May as well. So in the end, I think we're cleaning up some stuff that had just been lingering because of the transition. This next one is that new set of reporting we started looking at about 2 months ago. This is a look at dispatch calls versus what we actually bill out as runs as a percentage. So just as a refresher, that darker green line is a running average month by month. And then that straight green line, which is a little lighter, I picked a point in time of December of 21 when we switched to LifeQuest. And the reason I do that is you can see that our percentage was pretty consistent with the running average, and then it became more volatile after that. That shouldn't have anything to do with the billing company because they don't tell us what to bill or not. We do that, but for whatever reason, there was a change there. So now I've just been tracking it that way. And the running average is getting up a little bit closer to that average from December of 21. So that's good to see. It means we're billing at a higher percentage of runs or calls again. The next one is the same information, but it's by calendar year. And you can see number of calls and number of runs have gone down kind of each year. The runs actually went up last year. And then I put a percentage in there for the year, what percentage of the calls we're actually billing out. And you can see the percentage is down for 24, But when we flip to the next page, which is a 12-month cycle, which is what I like to look at, that percentage stays pretty flat. So I think some of that is seasonal, why we're down for the year so far this year. And it looks like, according to past years, that'll catch up as we get towards the end of the year. But again, the calls we're receiving are lower, and then consequently, the number of runs we're billing are lower as well. All right, and this is the one that I'm probably going to do one more month and then you won't see again because it's getting too messy. This is just the months that we have data for in each calendar year, the percentage billed versus the running average. Just another way of looking at it. All right, so then the last thing I wanted to show you is the report I get right from EMSMC. And I'm just going to walk you through this. There's not a lot of data yet because we're only 2 months in. But when we get to about 6 months, this is going to be really good data to look at. And I think it will actually replace some of the stuff I've been putting together. So what this shows first is the trip charges by month. And it's going to show collections, which right now it's very low because we're only 2 months in, and a lot of our stuff is Medicaid, Medicare, which takes a while to pay. Insurance takes a while to pay. So it's going to always lag. If you just want to scroll down a little bit, Lynn, these are some graphs which are similar to what I show you. So this is one where the blue line is going to be the number of runs per month, and then the green line is that running average. So once this hits, it looks like a 6 or 8 month mark, that's going to be very reliable. Because right now they're taking an average going way back to March when we didn't really bill till much later. No, they're going back to September of 23. So that's why that running average is so much below. That will catch up once every month that is showing is a billed month that we've been with the new company. So that'll be nice information to look at. And then these next ones are actually going to break down by payer. So you can see we've got Medicare, which those are high numbers of runs, high dollar amounts. The next one's Medicare Advantage, same thing. High number of runs, high dollar amounts. Insurance itself is half to a third. And when I combine these Medicares together, it's way less than that even. And then the next page shows Medicaid, 2 different Medicaids. And then the final one is patient, which would be direct bill. So that, that's why I always say our goal is 50% collections. Sawyer County is not going to hit that because we don't get 50% on a Medicaid, Medicare run. So we just won't hit that. And insurance doesn't pay it 100% either. So it's a good goal to have. It's unlikely we'll ever hit it because we're so reliant on Medicaid, Medicare. The next one is facility. I'd have to assume that's a transport. Andy, wouldn't you assume that? And then other government payers, TPL, which I don't even know what that stands for. But we don't have any. So then the next page shows the aging schedule, which you're used to seeing. But then the next 2 graphs under that are pretty interesting. So the aging is going to give a pie chart of the information that I've given you in the past, which will be fun to look at. But the next one on the right there actually shows by payer category. So we're going to see what's outstanding by payer as well. So I think this is going to be really good reporting once we have about 6 months into it. This next one is accounts receivable reconciliation report. It's a little different from aging. Kind of shows probably the discounted amount, which we've never had that before either. That's been asked of me, what does get written off right away for Medicaid, Medicare. I think this will show that as we get more information, get into it a little further. So that's the last page of that report. Is that something you guys want to keep seeing, especially until it fills up and then decide? Yeah, it is. And it's a lot less work because I just get that and it takes me about 2 hours to put together the other one. So
Andy, are we unique in running our own EMS to other counties in Northwest Wisconsin?
Yeah, we're unique in a couple of respects. One is that it's a county-wide service, and then it's owned and run by the county is unique in itself. So Rusk County is a county-wide ambulance service that's run by the county.
That's what?
It is a county-wide ambulance
Okay.
service that's run by the county. Waushara County is another county that's like that. Taylor County is kind of a hybrid. And then I'm trying to think, Marquette County in southern Wisconsin is another, I believe. But those are the only ones I know of that are county-wide services run by the county. So like Washburn County is essentially a county-wide service, but there it's run by the townships who collectively bid or contract that out to a private entity, to North Memorial. Other counties, like Barron County, they're all municipal ambulances or attached to fire departments. Either they're municipal or like Rice Lake contracts with Lakeview Medical for their territory. Chautauqua has a ambulance service that's part of their fire department. Dallas, they're all the individual communities. Same thing like in Polk County, Burnett County, or no, Burnett County again is like Washburn where the townships contract with an entity. Polk County is a lot of different.
Are there counties, so that this sounds like the responsibility is put upon the towns. Is there counties that outsource it? Or I guess what I'm getting at is there any educated guess on cost savings or cost increases of doing it in-house versus outsourcing the countywide ambulance?
The only thing I can tell you that I know of is having done that. Okay, when I was in Rusk, we looked at that. Before we launched into going, we were always a countywide service, but it was all like volunteers or paid per call. So before we hired staff and went full-time, kind of following Sawyer's path, we did put out an RFP, and like Lakeview Medical and North Memorial both responded. There wasn't going to be any cost savings to it, simply because they're going to charge you their cost plus something on the top.
Right.
Yep. So, and then the other thing that they would come in with the recommendation is, they're still going to want to take all the transfers that they can get from the hospitals, and that'll be their revenue. So it's not, at least my experience, not a cost savings.
Okay.
Probably less headaches and
of management.
Yeah, that type of thing. Just from a statutory standpoint, it is not the responsibility of the county to provide EMS or ambulance service to the residents. It's actually a municipal responsibility. It's a town and city responsibility. But once you have a countywide service, it's not impossible, but it would be really hard to go to the towns and say, no, we're done. It's yours.
Right.
Because they don't have the ability to levy over the top of the levy like we do to do EMS. Or they would have to get together and figure out how to do it, which is just going to take the cost from the county levy and put it on the municipal levies.
But some areas are using it more than others.
Using
ambulance service.
Yeah, I mean the call distribution.
So when you look at the higher rates, those taxpayers are paying as much as
correct
somebody that's not using it as much. That would be the only fairness argument, I guess.
And you'll see like City Hayward has a lot of calls, even though maybe it's not strictly based on their population. It's because they have more of the care facilities here, which have higher call volumes, in the hospitals here. So it's just going to be more in the city because of that.
And we charge taxpayers, not towns.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all broken down by valuation.
Right.
And that goes to the root of the conversation we've had with like the town of Edgewater, who's a high value township, so they pay a larger proportion of all of our county services. But in particular for ambulance, they have a service provider they've already contracted with separate.
Mm-hmm.
So they are paying more for ambulance service in that township.
Right. Okay, that's helpful information. Thank you. Video.
Okay. So everything's in the agenda that we've had for the last couple meetings. Really, I don't have a whole lot to, to talk about as far as the details of how the radio system will be laid out. We did have an update at public safety, and we've gone through and looked at additional tower sites in the southeast portion of the county that could work with either the GenCom or if we go with the Bug Tussle. Just to recap, so GenCom is our radio provider. They identified a new radio network and different tower sites. A couple of those, 2 to 4, we might have to build our own towers because either we're going to have to lease tower space from a provider or a tower that's there, or we'll have to build our own. And that's a whole conversation we're still researching because if we build our own towers, that's cost to us. That's $500,000 plus each tower site that we have to pay, and then we have to own and manage a tower. Okay, so the benefit to us as a county to do that is it's a capital expense. We can issue debt for that, and we have the tower we need, and we're operating it. Now, if we don't want to be in the tower business and we want to lease towers, we're looking at $1,500 to $2,500 a month for each tower. Could be $100,000 plus annually to lease space on the towers. That would be an operating expense, which would come out of our operating levy, which we don't get much of an increase in our operating levy. So that's just the consideration with that proposal alone. The Bug Tussle option that we looked at would be they come in, build a fiber ring, put up the towers, and then we would be partnering with them and extending our borrowing capacity for them to use. But then we get the space in all the towers they put up where we could put our equipment, it'd be connected to fiber, and we could use that for our network. So that's the two paths we're still going down, and we're still going down. We did, for the Bug Tussle, from the initial tower sites that he proposed, there were some gaps in the southeast portion of the county where we didn't have the coverage we want. We've gone ahead and looked at a couple other options to, like the fire tower by Connors Lake, or Price County is looking at Bug Tussle, and they would have a tower in the southwest portion of their county called the Kimberly Clark site, that if we were able to co-locate on that tower with them, that would cover our gaps in the southeast portion of the county. So that's moving ahead. So we're still working on these things. Oh, and kind of the other big piece that's really not specific to us building a tower, but LCO, WOJB radio tower is a site that GenCom's identified as a good one for us to be on. It's a tall tower. It would cover a big swath of the county. So they've done the preliminary discussions with them as to, okay, what's on their tower? Is there room for us? They're still verifying that because there are other leases that WOJB has, like they have, I think, AT&T on their tower. We have to see if there's any prohibition from us going on there with AT&T. Is there any conflict? They have to do a tower study at some point to make sure that signals don't cross. And then if that works, what are the terms going to be of us being on the WOJB tower? We haven't even gotten to that yet. So we're still working on all that. So coming back to what's on the agenda is that to keep Bug Tussle open as an option for us and to continue working on it, there are some timing issues with us passing the initial resolution on item number 5 and item number 6, the notice of intent. Because once we do that, then Bug Tussle and their council can start working on putting the package together. It also opens up a window of time where by us passing the notice of intent, if the citizens, the taxpayers in the county don't like us going in this direction, they have a 30-day window to ask for a referendum to do this. So looking to get those moving ahead to the board this month. It does not bind us. I can put it up on the screen, but we did get our council to look at it and just to confirm that adopting the initial resolution does not commit us to approving the project, does not commit us to issue the bonds or providing a limited guarantee of the borrowing. That would only happen after now we're on the clock though, that by our August meeting, we'd have to say yes or no to Bug Tussle and make a commitment. I think Mitch is on, so maybe I'll let him jump into to make sure I'm not explaining.
And the Bug
Okay.
Tussle's the owning or the outsourcing?
Bug Tussle would be us partnering with them. We allow them to use our borrowing capacity. They build it. We have access. Now, should they default, we would become responsible for
Right.
that loan. But
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Is there a limitation on how many users can use each tower? In other words, how many users could use the LCO's tower? And why wouldn't they let us use their tower?
there are limitations depending on the technology, like what are you putting on there for receivers and transmitters to make sure that there's no signal interference. But yeah, they have a gap in their tower. I think it's like 300 feet and to 350 where it looks like we might be able to get on there as long as our signals don't interfere with other things that are on the tower. There is a limit. Yep. Mitch, are you there?
I am. I didn't want to jump in on top of you. I everything you've said is particularly accurate. You did a great job summary.
Except
Makes
he's
my job easy. I just wanted to add, and I know we've talked about it a couple of times, and probably more a public
absent
safety.
him being able to jump on, that's kind of where we're at with things. Keeps. Yep, it does.
Makes sense.
My question would be, can we roll these together? These,
5 and 6 can be done together are the two action items.
okay, so I would like to make a motion to approve the initial resolution approving Bug Tussle project revenue bond financing. And it's number 5, and then number 6, the notice of intent with Bug Tussle.
Mitch has got his hand up. Lynn, is the speaker on? Click on that right there. You'll go up to there and to the left. Click on that. There.
And I'll second.
Sorry about that. Now can I ask Mitch if he can talk?
Do we have a motion?
You got a first and second.
First, second.
Mitch, are you there now?
I am. Can you hear me?
All right. Yep, we can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. You did great. I don't have anything in particular to add other than I just want to mention is that we're effectively infinitely flexible on the tower placement. So it's more of a discussion on the public safety side, probably. But insofar as to say is where the towers end up going is your network is our top priority there. You're a blank enough slate from both the cellular and the fixed wireless side that whatever works on the county side is what we'll be able to do with the tower placement. So it's just a matter of figuring out exactly with GenCom where things need to be placed and how it all makes sense. But other than that, Andy's summary is exactly accurate at a non-binding place, but we move this forward and then we make actual decisions in August.
Any other questions or?
We would also pick up some wireless internet and some cellular for people out there.
Yeah, the Bug Tussle.
Bug Tussle.
Yeah, the Bug Tussle proposal, that's their business. So they're putting up these towers. We're partnering with them. They put up the network. It's connected by fiber. They lease space on the tower to cell providers potentially. And then also they sell fixed wireless service to the public. We're allocated with our agreements with them, depending on tower height, a certain position on the tower, like 250 feet, 200, 250, or whatever it might be, for 10 years, I believe it, or maybe it's 20.
It's 30.
30? All right.
Yep, the full length of the bond. And if it's me making the decisions in 30 years, I'll extend it infinitely.
Any further discussion?
The motion is to send numbers 5 and 6, the initial resolution approving Bug Tussle project revenue bond financing and the notice of intent to the board for approval.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Mitch. Number 13, consideration of short-term financial assistance to NWCEP. Discussion and possible action. Andy?
I think we discussed this last month, and now we have the official request. So in the agenda packet, you saw number 2 is the request from Northwest SEP to Sawyer County for $5,000 of assistance. They were looking for a loan, cash advance, or a grant. There are, at this point, and this was as of like a week and a half ago, 5 of the other 10 counties in Northwest SEP have approved $5,000, and all are approving it as a short-term loan to Northwest SEP. And that's what we have presented in the packet. There's a resolution to that effect. And I also attached the financials from 22 to 23. And I mean, really their problem started, at least in 22. They've had, I'll just give you a quick assessment that a couple things have happened that have caused them to be in a cash crunch right now. They've had some declining revenues and not, I guess in my own opinion, have not adjusted their expenses accordingly. And so they ran through some reserve funds in 22 to 23. And this year, without any reserve funds for their 23 to 24 fiscal year, they have outstanding obligations, which they can't pay until they receive grant reimbursements. And so that's why they were looking for a bridge to be able to make their payroll and pay leases until they receive their grant reimbursements that will come in July and August. They did get a short-term loan from bank in Ashland, but then they're still asking for the county assistance to be able to help give them a operating account to work with for at least 6 months to hopefully make the changes to not have this occur in the future.
The other, so you said 5 had approved, the other 5 are like us thinking about it. Has anybody disapproved?
Have not heard anybody disapprove. More of it was the timing. Okay. Some were able to get it into their June meetings, and some are going into their July meetings for the.
And shame on me, but I'll have to ask, what does Sawyer County get out of them? What do we get when they're successful?
Our residents get assistance through them. So I think, I don't know if it was at this meeting or the other meeting, administration last month, Steve Karyanen distributed kind of their things they do. So they work with displaced workers. They provide some assistance, some programming to our jail inmates through their funding and assistance, individuals that work in the field for them. But it is a lot of types of job training, finding a job assistance. They provide, this is a federally designated entity that brings in money to perform those services throughout the region.
And what's the loan again?
$5,000.
$5,000. And do you think when they get this injection of $5,000 per county, I mean, are you, I don't know, I'll say it, are you have confidence level they'll be successful down the road, or would this be a recurring thing?
I have a little confidence because I think their board is more in tune with, now that they've had to go out and ask for assistance, that they have to make and make sure the administration is making the changes to prevent this from happening in the future.
Okay.
Because I think they've recognized that they've had some sources of funding that have been trending downward, and they have not adjusted their expenses to trend downward with those revenues. So they are actively with the board making those changes, or putting the plans together and how they're going to make those changes.
What's the risk we don't get paid back?
What's the risk?
Yeah.
Well, there's always that risk. I mean, their plan to repay us is through their receivables that are incoming. They're still coming in.
And do they have these grants that are coming? They have $50,000 worth of grants.
Yes.
In July, August.
Uh-huh.
So it should be a pretty good chance that we'll get paid back.
I believe so. There's no way to make it a secure loan.
Right.
There's like they don't have the ability to, they really have no assets to pledge, essentially, that type of a program.
Just seems like there's a lot of duplicate efforts, and I don't know why, like, the WEDC is not funding them. I mean, there's tons of duplication efforts, and so for the counties to have to step in, it kind of stinks because we already have programs through EDC. So it just, hopefully this would be the only time we'd have to bail them out.
And this is a federal program, isn't it?
It's a federally designated
And it's a loan.
entity. It is, yeah, we're doing this loan.
It's a loan.
But I mean, like
Yeah.
what Stacy's.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I think they're all good comments. I think, it's only 5,000, so it's not a lot. It is a loan. But never saying no for the taxpayer is always, it adds up over time, right? So it's a tough one.
It would be a donation, I would say absolutely not.
Right.
Since it's one off.
Correct. I agree with that.
And I didn't ask Jeff Muse as their executive director. I didn't ask him to be on here this morning, but I could have him on for the board meeting if you want to hear right from the.
He gave us a presentation last month, didn't he?
No, Steve gave you a little bit of a presentation. Steve is our board representative to Northwest SEPNO.
I think if they're successful with what they're doing and it is just a loan and they pay it back, I guess it's a successful story. No harm, no foul.
It's a good program. I used it probably 30 years ago. So, I mean.
How do you stop other organizations? You're in the bank.
Yeah, there would be a handful of other organizations that it would be similar. It is a federal, the SEP concentrated employment programs are federally designed. They do bring in federal money, but the counties that are part of the region are the stakeholders and the oversight. So the only place they can really come to for finance, like for a loan like this, would be to the member counties. I mean, they had to. The member counties through our board reps had to approve them borrowing the Ashland County or the bank funds. But really we're the fiduciary responsibility. We're the fiduciary oversight for them.
If we don't make this law.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably be able to bridge it through like
The other 5 counties.
Yeah.
Right, it's just a bad luck. That's about it, really.
Yeah. Well, it's because we use their service.
Right, that's what I say. It's just a bad look in a sense about that. That'd be the only repercussions, if you want to call it that.
Or a good look. Depending on
Exactly.
who you're talking to.
Folks, remember to use your microphones.
Oh, yeah.
I think bringing it to the full board is our due diligence, but.
True.
So do we already make a?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve it because it is a loan and it's not a gift. I think if the precedent is set and more people come, a couple no's in a row would maybe stop that. So I'll make the motion to approve to send to the full board.
You already on. Why don't you do that? I'll second the motion then.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 1 nay. Thank you. Further? Otherwise, I think we're adjourned. That is the business. Thank you, everyone.
Did you want to make a note for future agenda items?
Oh, right. Future agenda items. I guess for Matthew question, if we could have a quick update on Act 10 in a condensed version of what it is, what it's done for the county, and the threat out there that it could be revoked. I think that would be helpful for everybody to understand.
So the what? I'm sorry.
Act 10.
Oh, yeah, that just.
Dane County judge found that his opinion on constitutional.
Yeah, well, affects that, yeah.
Right. But I think, yeah, I think that'd be helpful because I think it was encouraging to hear the delay in the thoughts, but I mean, if it were to go through, I think it would be catastrophic for counties throughout
You
the
want to
state.
keep the radio stuff on for updates?
Yep.
Right.
That'll be on, yeah.